Good Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here. There's been a lot happening this week, a lot to talk about. Today is Sunday, October 6th, 2024. Thank you for tuning in. Let's talk about the storm first. Yeah, there's another hurricane brewing. And they're starting to narrow the track down now, the hurricane track. Where's it going to go? They're starting to figure out where it's going to go. Looks like it's going to cut across right through Central Florida. I used to live in Central Florida, so I know all about Central Florida. It's landmass, not the way the land's laid out, and also I know about the cities, where the cities are and their vulnerabilities. Now Tampa Bay is a huge vulnerability, and it looks like it's going to come in. The eye is going to come in right around Tampa Bay. Why Tampa Bay is so vulnerable? Well, it's like other low-lying cities, like New Orleans is vulnerable to water, flood damage. But Tampa Bay is unusual in that it faces kind of south, so the storm surge would have to hit it at a very certain correct angle, like on the approach of the storm. For the storm surge to push through Tampa Bay. And also tides would mean a lot. Is it coming in on a high tide, or is it coming in on a low tide? That's a 3-foot difference. The storm surges can vary. Sometimes they're 6 feet, 9 feet, 12 feet, depending on the power of the hurricane. It looks like we're going to catch a little break on this one, guys. When this hurricane gets in there around Wednesday, 7 a.m. Wednesday, on that spot right there shows 7 a.m. Wednesday, just as it's approaching the coast of Florida. It looks like it's going to hit a little bit of what's called wind shear. And it looks like that could inhibit it a little bit. But it's going to make major hurricane status on probably Tuesday. So it's going to be a major hurricane. But wind shear is the nemesis of hurricanes. It knocks the strength right out of them, And so it all depends on how it hits. And another factor I notice is the track moved a little bit south. The north track's worse because the prevailing winds rotate around the hurricane from right to left. And that's that prevailing wind that can push the water up into Tampa Bay if it hits. If it's a little bit further to the north, then they're going to get the winds off the east side of the storm, which would push the waters in more. And if it moves a little bit south of Tampa Bay, then the rotational winds, the really strong rotational winds, would be further south that would bring the water into Tampa Bay. And that's the big thing, is water damage. We all learned this from Helene. It was mostly water damage that was done in places like North Carolina. So we might catch a little bit of a break on this one, I'm thinking. It might not turn out to be as damaging as Helene, especially if it goes a little bit further south. Then you're going to miss Orlando if it goes further south, and you're going to miss St. Petersburg and Lakeland and all those cities in there. And between Lake Okeechobee and Orlando, if you move south of Orlando, you're moving into an area where I don't think there's quite as expansive a population. Orlando's a huge city, and so are Tampa and St. Petersburg. They're huge cities. And on the path that it was pointing toward, the eye would have went right over Tampa Bay and St. Petersburg and right over Orlando. But moved this a little bit further south, and it looks like it's tracking further south. So we're going to have to wait. It could turn out to be really bad. It's got the potential. We're going to have to wait and see where that track is. That track is all important. If it moves a little bit further south, we'll catch a break, I think, But if it moves directly a little bit further north, it could be really bad. Taking a look now at, I'm talking about for Orlando and for Tampa and St. Pete. It's those storms on the eastern side of the storm, the winds on the eastern side of the storm, that are really, really they push the water inland. Those are the winds that push the water inland, Of course, Florida is heavily populated. There's no place it's going to be able to go across and not hit somebody if it's going to hit Florida, because Florida is heavily populated. The whole thing's heavily populated. Now, the death toll from Helene is rising. What I heard is, I've been hearing it on news sources. People are saying these words: "Where's FEMA?" They're looking here, and they're like, "Where's FEMA?" You know, but they're getting help. Help's coming. Other citizens are helping them. Ordinary people are driving in and helping and lending a hand. From what I gathered, I guess Trump was opening a GoFundMe or something, or he's trying to help. Elon Musk is helping with satellite services and things like that. So they're trying to help. But as far as, that's what I've been hearing. People are saying, "Where's FEMA? Where's FEMA?" You know, because they're the people who are supposed to be, I mean, it's called Federal Emergency Management, whatever. You know, I mean, they're supposed to be the people who rush in a big disaster. And they get the funding and everything, you know? What's going on with that? I'm just wondering, because that's what I've been hearing. Now, I'm not there, so I don't know. That's just what I've been hearing. Now, this gets me, guys. Trump. He's returned to that Butler where he was shot in the ear. He's returned there, and he's got a special guest, Elon Musk, and he's went there, and I guess he's holding a rally there. He said, "We're coming back. We're going to come back." He's returned. You know, that's very unusual. Why I find this unusual is, normally when a person has been shot someplace, they don't tend to return to that site. Like, it's like a mental thing, you know, like, what can I say? It just seems kind of brave to me this soon after the shooting for him to actually go back to that same spot and everything and do the same thing what he was doing before there. Seems kind of brave to me. I don't think much shakes him. Because normally a person would be still shooken up by this, really shooken up, and they wouldn't want to see that place. I'm just saying, you know. Now, they're raising concerns, you know, about the toxic exposure that could be occurring for people who are in the Helene floodwaters. I was just watching this morning. People who are actually, they were sitting in their living, I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the heck? It was a nice house, and it was in the Carolinas, probably North Carolina. Might have been Asheville. I'm not sure where the video come from, but the people were sitting in their house, like in the living room, and the water was up to their armpits. And they were sitting in the chairs and stuff, talking to one another, just like they were sitting at home. I guess they didn't have no place else to go, nobody to rescue them or whatever. And they were talking to one another and stuff. And they were kind of floating around or sitting around inside. The water wasn't real deep, you know. I mean, it looked to me, well, it was up to the bottom of the picture frames on the inside. It's a nice looking house, really nice. It's like, but the water is still there. The floodwaters is inside the house, and they were inside the house there, and it's like really surreal. It was like they were sitting in a jacuzzi or something inside their house. Well, I saw this article here. They're raising concerns about those toxic waters. Well, these people, I guess a lot of people, have been soaked now for days. Their fingers are probably like prunes in this toxic water, and they're saying that there's chemical and biological contamination running through these floodwaters. It said that, where does it say? There's overflowed sewage systems, running into it. It says hundreds of industrial sites with toxic pollutants, including paper mills, fertilizer factories, oil and gas storage facilities, and even a retired nuclear plant is running into those waters. But you know, if people can't escape the water, they're going to get wet. You know, and this days are starting to go by for these people. Some of them are still trapped up in regions up in the mountains and stuff, you know, and they're like down to their last. Maybe they're drinking rainwater, I don't know. But in a disaster like this, just to be able to make a cup of coffee's big, guys. In a disaster like this. And you know, we're seeing the people in these states having to go through this problem, and we're outside these areas, and we're like looking in, and we can see what they're going through. If we get a World War III, everybody's going to be going through problems like this. So you should probably prepare for it now, because I'm going to tell you guys, I really, do I think World War III is coming tomorrow? Well, I don't really think it's coming tomorrow. But do I think World War III is coming? I think we're working in that direction really fast. We're going in that direction. And I don't really see anything out there that's going to turn this car around and make us go in the opposite direction from that at this point. At this point, it just looks like it's full steam ahead to me. And there's a problem, and I've pointed this out before, what I call this irreconcilable differences. It has everything to do with the world's prosperity. And these two sides that are divided, and they're fighting over control. They're fighting over the oil, they're fighting over the money, they're fighting over the control of the financial system. And both sides are set up, and both sides want that control factor. The West has it right now. They have the ball, and they don't really intend to fumble it, not without a fight. And the East, which is the BRICS blocks nations and stuff, BRICS, they want the ball. They want to carry the ball. You know, and there's a big fight over the ball. And it's one of those things where we're just inching day by day toward a bigger and wider conflicts in the world that are going to ultimately, I don't see it going in any other direction. I think the superpowers are going to mix it up at a certain point. Now, how's all that going to pan out ultimately? Well, a lot of people think end of the world. They think nuclear winter. They think end of everything. I don't think so. I think that there's so many other directions that it could take other than that you can't see from this side. You can't see how our biggest vulnerabilities, I don't see it, our biggest vulnerabilities as in an all-out nuclear attack being used for our biggest vulnerabilities, are standing out like a sore thumb as far as I'm concerned. Our infrastructure, I see it as one of our biggest, and our electronic infrastructure, to be more specific. Everything that supports our modern lifestyle, it's just like a light switch. It could be turned off by the enemy if you get in a World War III situation. Much easier than launching a nuclear attack. They could turn off our lifestyle. It's all electronic. It's got an off switch. It's got multiple off switches. I'll point out one of them right here on my show. Is I see these undersea cables that carry our internet as being an extreme vulnerability. I mean, they run for thousands and thousands of miles. And just like Nord Stream 2 was cut overnight, we woke up in the morning and we found out that they cut the gas line. Somebody cut it. Nobody claimed responsibility. I don't think anybody's ever claimed responsibility. Everybody's saying, well, Ukraine did it, and then they say, well, United States did it, and then they say Britain did it, and then they say Russia did it, and it goes on and on and on, blaming, pointing the finger around at who did it, but it was cut. And it was cut quick, and it was cut easy. Those undersea cables are just as vulnerable, maybe even more vulnerable, because they run for thousands and thousands of miles, where they can't. You got like 300 or something of these undersea cables, and each one running in different directions across thousands of miles of ocean. How are you going to guard that? And yeah, I know you can reroute internet if they just cut like one cable. But what if they just go snip, 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 snip right down the line? Then you say, well, how long is that going to take to fix? Well, it took years to put them in. How long is it going to take to fix them? God only knows. But you ain't going to have no internet. And you know what I found out? I found out that, yes, they have connected I guess, for convenience and ease of use and everything else. All your power grid is all like the switches and stuff on your power grid. They do it over the internet. Like they can turn the grid off in a certain place over the internet. But that also means if the internet goes down, does the grid go down? Big question mark. And I think the answer, I'm not sure the answer, but I think the answer might be yes. Very possibly. So everything's interconnected nowadays. And can you just imagine? You're going to have to use your imagination, guys, just for a little bit. Just imagine in your mind if the internet went out over the whole, everywhere. Like, it's gone. It's gone. And the officials come back on and they say, well, it's going to take us 6 months to get it back going again. Can you imagine what people, after weeks go by, what's going to happen with the people with no emergency services, no feasible way anymore of routing the trucks to the different stores and stuff, and everything is just no way of doing bank. They've switched over so fast into all this internet stuff, and they've just taken all the old way they used to do everything and throwing it all in the garbage. To go back to the old way they used to do things before the internet, say you went back to the year 1992. That's back before we used to do things online. Everything was done offline. It was done through paper and a pen. They'd write down where the truck's going on a note, on a paper and a pen, the log keeper. Threw all that away. They don't even know how to do it anymore. To go back would maybe take 6 months or a year. To go back to doing things on paper again, banking on paper and everything, because the internet's gone. Now just picture in your mind, what are the people going to be like? Well, they're going to turn into what you see happening in North Carolina right now. Is an idea what they're going to be like, but it's not complete, because the people in North Carolina and stuff that are stuck up on those hillsides and stuff like that with no water, no food, they know in general what caused the situation. They know that the hurricane caused it, and they know from previous experience, they know that within a few weeks or a month, or maybe it might take 2 months in a really bad hurricane, they're going to get restored. They also know law and order outside of their area is still running. And so the way the people act in a situation like that is much more patient than if the people know that this is it. This is it. This is an SHTF. We don't know what caused it. All we know is the power's out, the internet's down across the whole country, and it's never coming back in the foreseeable future. And there's no law and order anymore. Then the people are going to act different. That's going to determine their actions. Whereas if they know that law and order is still existing, say in the county over there, just the county next to me, then their actions are going to reflect that there's still law and order in the country. But when they know there's no law and order anymore, no repercussions for their actions, they're going to act different. So in a real shift, they're going to act different because they know that we're on our own now at this point. And some of them out there, the badder actors, are going to be like, yeehaw! Now, some of them are going to be like, oh no. People are going to all react different, but they're not going to react like the hurricane survivors. They're going to react in a little bit different fashion, the shift survivors. Just saying that, pointing that out to you guys. So anyway, we're going to track the silver price today. Been a whole week for silver. 32.16 right now. Where's it going to go this week? There's drivers behind gold and silver right now. There's things that they can fix, and there's things they can't fix. Like that hurricane that's brewing right now in the Gulf of Mexico. They have no control over that. If that thing does tremendous damage like Helene, they don't have control over it. But there's things they do have control over. Financial system's one of the things they have control over. So just like they do it through that tightening schedule, they can go through a loosening. We saw the big loosening, enormous loosening, during the beginning of COVID when they went into the stimmy checks and everything else. And money creation, So they have control over the financial system to a certain degree, because when they create all that money to try to solve a problem, they're creating another problem, which is inflation. But they do have control to pull things up and out using their money creation tool to pull things up and out of a stagnant economy or whatever. They do have that control. There's things that have control over and things they don't, and one of the things that is which one of these is going to kind of go down first. I'm sitting back here watching and saying to myself, which one's going to go down first? Is the war going to beat the economy going down, or is the economy going to collapse and then war, or is it going to be war first and then the economy? It's starting to look like it's going to be war first. Boy, I'll tell you guys, we're going through some awful hard times right now, and stuff's happening so quick that it's hard for me to keep up on a week-to-week show on everything that's going on. Like we had a big trying to keep you guys up. I mean, we had a big dock workers and stuff, and longshoremen and everything. They had a big strike in the United States, and everybody was on here saying, "Oh my gosh, it's going to be the end of the world. They're going to destroy the economy by we're going to lose $5 billion a day if the strike." And the strike only went on for like it was over before it even hardly started. It only lasted a day or two. So that was passed this week. That was gone over with this week, So there's a lot happening in the world right now. The world's moving at 90 miles an hour. And a lot can happen really fast in the modern age, too. Like we got Iran and Israel. They're taking turns over there. It's not really into the full-scale war yet, but they're taking turns, taking attacks at each other. And now on this, that's going to come to a close. And, it'll be the final attack, and then they'll just blow up into all-scale war. And from what I'm seeing, it's looking like it's very close to that, because this latest attack by Iran, now it's Israel's turn. And when Israel takes that turn, then I think the response is going to come quicker from both sides, and I think it just could blow up into all-out war. One of the things that worries me about all this is if things were to escalate out of control too fast in the whole thing, and it were to go to nukes, and then things escalate really fast from there. The world's a powder keg. There's ammo stored all over the world in multiple different sizes, from the smallest to the largest. The smallest being maybe your little tiny, like a little pop gun, like a 22 or something, like tremendous amount of, and the ammunition starts there, and it moves all the way up larger and larger and larger scale sizes until you have enormous, and they're all shaped like bullets, and they're all like fireworks, because they got that's like gunpowder sort of thing, inside them. They're like fireworks in a way, but they're mostly of them, are, even the bigger ones, are shaped like a bullet, like an enormous bullet, a big ballistic missile that carries a thermonuclear warhead. It looks like a giant bullet, a sharp, pointy thing, and that's what it looks like. So you got little tiny ones that you can fit 100 of them in your hand. And then you've got the big, enormous ones that are like 40 feet long and weigh like 80 tons, whatever. Got like multiple warheads in it, but they're all the same idea. And the world's loaded with all that stuff. And it's a powder keg. And they could just. The thought went through my mind is if they blew it all off, then they wouldn't be able to create more. Because the factories that they use to produce more would all be blowing up too. What good are the weapons systems if they don't have any ammo for them? I mean, I think of the weirdest things run through my mind. That's what runs through my mind. What if they blow off all the ammo and they can't create more and they just shoot everything off? All the nuclear weapons, all of the bullets, all the missiles, everything that they got. Just empty. Their barrels would be red hot for like 4 days. And then quiet would settle in on the land, and what would be left? Well, there'd be a few trees that might be left standing. Maybe some of the bark would be blowing off of the sides. And there'd be potholes everywhere on the earth, like from where the things landed and blown up and made a big chunk of it, blew up a big chunk of earth. And it would just be desolate wasteland as far as the eye could see. And it would just be over if that were to happen, if they were to go, just everybody tries to fire everything they got at the same time because they figure use it or lose it. I think that's what's going through people's heads when they think of the all-out nuclear war, the war that would cause nuclear winter. But what do I think the odds of that actually happening are? I think it's pretty slim. Just some of the crazy stuff that goes through my mind if I'm just mulling, like and letting my mind go through free thought, and let it do what it's going to do, Anyway, I've probably rambled on enough about that. Let's see what's happening in cryptocurrency today. We're looking at 62,728 for Bitcoins. Bitcoin's holding in pretty good. Ethereum is at 2441. And XRP's 53 cents. I think those are about the same prices they were last week when we did the show. Taking a look at our markets today, they ended the week. The S&P ended the week up 51 points at 57,051. Dow Jones ended the week at 341 points up at 42,735. And crude oil at 74.45. Now I'm going to tell you guys, Israel right now is talking about, no, I don't think Israel's talking about, but other people are talking about it, that they might strike the Iranian not nuclear site, neither nuclear site or oil fields. They're talking about that they might strike. I think those are. Do you realize that if they cut off the Strait of Hormuz, what the oil price will go to and how that would affect inflation? It could absolutely, if it lasted any length of time, you think that strike with the longshoremen and stuff would have put the economy? Well, it's nothing compared to what the oil price, if it went up to $200 or more per barrel, could do to our economy. You want to talk about making things go down fast? Well, there you go. Bonds and rates today. We're looking at rising yields. The 10-year has risen 1.19 basis points, and it's at 3.96. And the U.S. 30-year is at 4.25, and it's risen 7.3 basis points. Finishing off with our U.S. dollar index, and it's at 102.49. Yeah, which way's everything heading, guys? Well, we're keeping our eye on it here, and we'll be on again next Sunday and with an updated report to see what happens this week. it's kind of like a cliffhanger, kind of like you used to watch those shows like Buck Rogers, the old black and white ones, and they used to always leave you with a cliffhanger. So what'll happen with Iran and Israel and stuff this week? You're gonna have to stay tuned until next week to continue this continuing saga of tit for tat between these two countries, and will they go into full-scale all-out war between each other? We got Russia on taking Iran's side, and we got the United States on Israel's side. And can you see a problem here, guys? A clash between superpowers? Because these countries, they form treaties. That's why the United States is staying on Israel's side no matter what. And when a treaty is formed between Iran and Russia, you don't know how deep those treaties go. And if you get two superpowers that start to clash, I'm talking about Russia and the United States of America, things could escalate out of control so fast because things have been brewing for a long time. Animosity's been brewing for a long time, and Russia has got to the point where they were launching what was called a Satan II there a couple weeks ago, out of its big and enormous place where they keep it underneath the ground. And it is an enormous missile. The Satan II, I guess it's the biggest in the world. It can carry like more than 10 thermonuclear warheads it can carry. The interesting thing about the Satan II is it doesn't necessarily have to come down from the North Pole to hit America. It can come from the South Pole. It can come from either pole, and they have their detection stations pointed up toward the north to detect these things, so it can approach from the south undetected. This one, Satan II, but it blew up on them. The Russians, they were going to launch it. They said it was a dummy warhead, but I mean, how would we know if it's a dummy warhead? That'd have to be Russian information. But it blew up. It didn't hardly get up into the air, and it blew up, and it took out it took out everything around it for like a quarter mile when it exploded. What were the Russians doing launching that thing to begin with? From what I understand, that's the most powerful weapon that they have. With like 10 multiple re-entry vehicles, or what they call MIRVs. What they do is when they're entering the Earth's atmosphere, they separate off in different directions. So it's like 10 bombs in one. And not just regular bombs, they're nuclear bombs. I think they're 300 kilotons each. So each one's like 10 times the power of Hiroshima. 10 times as powerful as Hiroshima or more. And there's like 10 of them. So like they can bring that thing in as it re-enters the atmosphere. They separate and go off in different directions, these MIRVs. And each one could strike a city. 10 different cities gone, vaporized just from one missile. How many of them they got, I don't know. But one of them, they got one less now because it blew up and they were launching it. What were they doing? Everybody just doesn't pay any attention. But China launched one, an ICBM, but it did have a dummy warhead. That just shows you the tensions out there, and the United States has been testing theirs. Everybody's getting ready. So this thing has been brewing for a long time. Animosities have been brewing for a long time. They've been talking about World War III for a long time. Going back on my channel, going back over a year ago now, I've been talking about the Minhan Memo, which is a document that you could look it up, General Minhan Memo. You could just look it up on the internet, find out what it is. But I did shows on it. But that would be, he was talking about a war between the United States and China in the Minhan Memo. But, that's all part of it. China's part of that block of the BRICS nations, and Iran is part of it, and so's China, and so's North Korea, and so's Russia. Those are big players in that block. So this is a worst case scenario, guys. When you've got the Earth divided in pretty much equal power on both sides. So you got the BRICS nations, all the East, Asia, and then you've got the West, NATO, and all of their block of countries. And I wouldn't say they're totally equally divided 50-50 as far as power is concerned. I think it's more like 60-40. That is just my estimation of it, and you guys can argue about that or not. But I'm thinking that the BRICS nations all together, militarily speaking, power probably represents 40, maybe 45% of the military power. And I think that the West, all the NATO nations combined, their military force is probably like 55-60%. It's a little bit stronger, I think. It's just my opinion on it. I think that their military budget's much larger in the West, and they've been able to put much more research and development and everything, and they're able to update and keep their weapons more updated. And like, Russia, for instance, why did that Sarmat blow up in there? You know what I mean? Why did it blow up on the launch pad? And if they were to launch a nuclear attack, would half of their missiles blow up because they're old Soviet era, whatever? You know? The United States keeps their arsenal, I think, updated quite a bit better. So I think they're a little bit stronger. But still, you've got this division between East and West, and it's the worst case scenario you can possibly have, because neither side is getting along right down to the fundamental core of their ideologies. It is irreconcilable as far as I can see it. And so both sides want control, and the West is not going to relinquish the control without a fight. I can't see them. I can't see them. Oh yeah, BRICS, you want to control the world? We're going to give you the control of the world. You know? And peace come, and the BRICS come along and say, okay, NATO, you can join the BRICS, and NATO says, okay, BRICS, you can join NATO, and everybody shakes hands and hugs. Do you see that happening? I don't see that happening. I see them all fighting. That's what I see, and getting worse and worse until finally, in the end, it's all out. All out, whatever. Because after a while, passion takes hold. They're just determined to get the enemy, and they lose all sense of. They're like the same thing as when a man goes into a rage, a complete rage. Well, you've all seen road ragers. They don't care about nothing at a certain point. They'll smash their own car just to try to get even. This is part of the human. It's built into. It's an animalistic tendency that could destroy us. Rage. And trying to get even, The Bible said when somebody slaps you in the cheek, turn the other cheek, but they don't think in that way. That's right. That principle is right over their head. They're below all that, and they can't even see that principle. Thank you guys for listening. You guys have a great afternoon, and we'll catch you in the next show. Bye-bye.